Captain Tyke stared out the large window of Outpost Sentinel-7. The stars didn't change. They never did. 3 years at this remote space station had taught him that much. He sighed and spun his chair back to face his desk, where a tower of paper clips stood almost 15 centimeters tall. Personal best, he muttered, then swept the tower into the drawer as his office door slid open. Lieutenant Jiwoo entered, carrying a tablet. Her uniform was perfect, but her eyes showed the same boredom that infected everyone on the station. "Sir, I have the weekly reports," she said, handing him the tablet. Tyke took it without looking. "Anything interesting?" "No, sir. Same as last week. And the week before that, and the week before that." Tyke nodded and placed the tablet on his desk. "How's the crew doing?" "They've started another project, sir." "What is it this time?" Tyke asked, almost afraid of the answer. "They've converted the recreation bay into what they're calling a zero-G paintball arena." Tyke rubbed his forehead. Last month it had been racing modified cleaning robots. The month before that, an unofficial contest to see who could grow the strangest plant using only things from the cafeteria. "Should I tell them to stop?" Jiwoo asked. Tyke thought for a moment. "No. Let them have. They're fun. Better that than going crazy from boredom." Jiwoo nodded. She understood. The United Earth Defense Force had stationed 200 soldiers at this outpost in the Tau Ceti system, with nothing to do but wait. Wait for a threat that never came. Wait until their 3-year posting ended. Just wait. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" Jiwoo asked. "Always. I think Sergeant Han is planning to turn the emergency escape pods into some kind of carnival ride." Tyke laughed. "Tell him if he does, he'll be cleaning the waste recycling units for a month." The conversation was cut short by a loud alarm. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. Both officers froze for a second, then jumped into action. "Station alert," said the calm computer voice. "Unknown vessels entering the system. Count, 17. Classification unknown." Tyke hit the comm button on his desk. "This is not a drill. All personnel to battle stations. Repeat, this is not a drill." He and Jiwoo ran to the command center. The large room was already filling with soldiers. Some looked scared, most looked excited. Anything was better than another day of nothing. "Report," Tyke barked as he took his captain's chair. Officer Min at the sensor station turned. "Sir, 17 ships just appeared at the edge of the system. They're moving fast toward us. No match in our databases." "First contact," someone whispered. Tyke nodded. "Communications, try all standard greeting channels. Defense, power up shields and weapons, but do not target. Let's not start a war if we don't have to." The crew moved with surprising speed. 3 years of drills had some use after all. "Sir," called communications specialist Jin. "We're getting a signal, audio and visual." "On screen," Tyke ordered. The main screen lit up with the image of an alien. It had gray-blue skin, 4 eyes set in a diamond pattern, and what looked like breathing tubes where a human nose would be. "Human station," the alien said in surprisingly good English. "I am Supreme Overlord Grak of the Mock Imperium. We require immediate assistance and protection." Tyke stood up. "I am Captain Tyke of the United Earth Defense Force. Why do you need protection?" The alien made a clicking sound. "We are being pursued by the Dosu Collective. They will arrive within your day cycle. They wish to exterminate us. We must form an alliance immediately." Whispers spread through the command center. Real aliens, a real threat, after 3 years of nothing. "And if we refuse?" Tyke asked carefully. "The Dosu will destroy you as well. They tolerate no witnesses to their conquests." Grak's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Your station is small, but we have scanned your weapons. Together, we might survive." Tyke thought quickly. "Allow 3 of your representatives to board our station for talks. Your ships can hold position 5,000 kilometers out." After some argument, Grak agreed. Within an hour, a small mock shuttle docked with Sentinel-7. Take, Jiwoo, and security officer Doyun met the aliens in the conference room. The mock were taller than humans, with 4 arms and those strange 4 eyes. Supreme Overlord Grak wore what looked like armor made of purple metal. The two mock soldiers with him carried weapons that hummed with energy. "Your station," Grak said, looking around. "It is a military outpost?" "Yes," Tyke answered. "Then where is the discipline? We passed humans playing some kind of game with colored projectiles in a zero-gravity chamber. Others were modifying what appeared to be combat drones to dance." Tyke smiled slightly. "My soldiers have been stationed here for 3 years with no action. They get bored." "Bored?" Grak repeated the word like it was new. "You allow this?" "Bored humans can be very creative. That creativity sometimes leads to useful innovations." Grak made a dismissive gesture with his upper right arm. "We have no time for human oddness. The Dosu will arrive soon. They have 30 warships, each more powerful than our vessels." Jiwoo stepped forward. "Then why are they chasing you?" "We possess technology they want, and knowledge of systems they have not yet found." Grak's breathing tubes flared. "They will take what we know, then destroy us. It is their way." Tyke crossed his arms. "So you led them to our station?" "We had no choice. Our long-range sensors detected your outpost. It was our only hope." Doyen, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "You haven't tried fighting back?" "Of course we have," Grak snapped. "The Dosu are methodical, unstoppable. They use standard conquest tactics perfected over centuries. We have lost 3 colony worlds to them already." Tyke shared a look with his officers. Standard tactics, methodical. These were words they understood well from military training. They also understood the weaknesses such approaches could have. "If we help you," Tyke said carefully, "what do we get in return?" Grak seemed surprised by the question. "You get to live. Is that not enough?" Tyke shook his head. "Earth will want more. Technology exchange, trade agreements, maps of space we haven't explored yet." The alien leader considered this. "If we survive, yes, all this can be arranged." Before they could continue, the station alarm sounded again. "Captain to command center," came a voice over the comm system. Tyke hit his communicator. "Report. Sir, long-range sensors have detected a large fleet entering the system. 32 ships, they're moving fast." Grak's 4 eyes widened. 32? They've added ships since our last encounter. Tyke looked at Jiwoo and Doyen. 3 years of waiting had just ended. He felt a strange sensation in his chest, fear mixed with excitement. "Well," he said, "looks like we don't have much choice. Lieutenant Jiwoo, escort our guests to the command center. Officer Doyen, battle stations. And," he paused, a slow smile forming, "tell the crew to bring their projects, all of them." Doyen grinned. "Even the modified maintenance drones, sir? Especially those. Time to show these Dosu what happens when you give human soldiers 3 years to prepare for a fight they didn't know was coming." As they headed for the command center, Grak studied the human captain. "Your soldiers seem eager for battle. This is not logical against such odds." Tyke laughed. "Supreme Overlord, there's nothing more dangerous in the universe than trained soldiers with too much time on their hands. The Dosu are about to learn that lesson the hard way." Supreme Overlord Grak stood in the command center of Outpost Sentinel-7, watching with growing confusion as the humans prepared for battle. In his many years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. "What is that soldier doing?" he asked, pointing to a young man who was attaching small rockets to his boots. Captain Tyke glanced over. "That's Corporal Sung. He's been working on those rocket boots for about 6 months now." "Are they standard human military equipment?" "No," Tyke said with a small smile. "Just something he made because he was bored." Grak's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of distress among the mock. "And you allow this chaos?" Before Tyke could answer, Engineer Hyun rushed into the command center with a group of small flying machines following her like obedient pets. "Captain!" she called excitedly. "The combat drones are ready. I've uploaded the new flight patterns." To demonstrate, she tapped on her tablet. The drones began to move in perfect formation, spinning and weaving around each other without colliding. They ended by forming a circle and performing what appeared to be a coordinated dance. "Very nice," Tyke said. "But will they fight?" Hyun nodded eagerly. Oh yes, sir, the dancing is just for fun, but the patterns make them almost impossible to track with standard targeting systems, and I've added some special surprises too. Grak made a strange, choking sound. These are your weapons? Dancing machines? Among other things, Tyke replied calmly. Lieutenant Jiwoo, report on the Dosu fleet. Jiwoo looked up from her screen. They'll be in weapons range in 2 hours, sir. 32 ships, heavily armed. They're moving in a standard attack formation. Standard, Tyke repeated, then turned to Grak. You said the Dosu use methodical tactics. Can you elaborate? Grak nodded stiffly. The Dosu Collective has conquered 3 sectors using the same approach. They surround their target, disable communications, then attack in waves. They are predictable, but overwhelming. Communications specialist Jin spun in her chair. Captain, I've been analyzing the Dosu communications we've picked up. Their encryption is complex, but what? Tyke prompted. Jin smiled. It follows patterns. I've been working on breaking alien signals for fun. To watch their TV shows. She looked slightly embarrassed. When you have movie night, every week for 3 years you start wanting new content. Tyke nodded, not surprised. And? I think I can crack their system. Not fully, but enough to cause confusion. Do it, Tyke ordered. He turned back to Grak. Supreme Overlord, we need to coordinate our defense. Your ships should... He was interrupted by a loud crash from across the command center. Security officer. Doyen had dropped a large metal container, spilling its contents across the floor. Sorry, Captain, Doyen called out. Just bringing the special weapons. The special weapons appeared to be a collection of oddly modified standard equipment. There were rifles with extra attachments, helmets with strange antennas, and what looked like a cannon made from cafeteria cooking pots. Grak stared in horror. What is that? Doyen grinned proudly. We call it the Spud Launcher. It started as a potato cannon for the station's New Year party, but we've improved it. Now it fires compressed air packets that can disrupt shield harmonics. You built a weapon? For a party? Grak seemed unable to process this information. Well, it wasn't a weapon then, Doyen explained. Just something fun to launch potatoes across the mess hall. But then we got thinking. Captain Tyke cut in. Officer Doyen, distribute the equipment. I want everything ready when the Dosu arrive. As Doyen hurried off, Grak turned to Tyke. Captain, with respect, your crew does not seem to be taking this threat seriously. The Dosu have destroyed entire worlds. I understand your concern, Tyke said, but trust me, my soldiers are very serious about fighting. They're just unconventional. We have 12% chance of survival, Grak insisted, his voice rising. This is not time for games. Tyke's expression hardened. Supreme Overlord, for 3 years my crew has had nothing to do but run drills and think about how they would handle a real battle if it ever came. Every modification, every strange project you see is the result of trained soldiers with too much time to think and experiment. He gestured around the busy command center. It may look like chaos to you, but there's method in it. My people aren't just prepared to fight. They're eager to test their ideas. Grak seemed unconvinced, but said nothing more. He watched as the human soldiers continued their preparations with an enthusiasm that seemed out of place given the overwhelming odds they faced. On the main screen, the sensor display showed the approaching Dosu fleet, a group of large, menacing ships moving in perfect formation toward Sentinel-7 and the smaller mock vessels. Captain, Lieutenant Jiwoo called. Incoming transmission from the Dosu. On screen, Tyke ordered. The screen flickered, then showed the face of a Dosu commander. Unlike the four-eyed mock, the Dosu had 6 small black eyes arranged in a circle. On their flat faces, their skin was deep red with black markings. I am General Vorks of the Dosu Collective, the alien said in a harsh, mechanical voice. Their translator made each word sound like a threat. Surrender the mock vessels and prepare to be boarded. Resistance is inadvisable. Captain Tyke stepped forward. This is Captain Tyke of the United Earth Defense Force. The mock are under our protection. Leave this system peacefully, or we will defend ourselves and our allies. General Vorks made a sound that might have been laughter. Your station is small. Your defenses are minimal. You have no chance of victory. Perhaps, Tyke replied, calmly. But you might be surprised at what we can do. Vorks's circular eyes contracted. Surprise is irrelevant. Our tactics are perfect. Surrender now and some of your crew may be spared for study. Tyke smiled. We'll take our chances. Tyke out. He nodded to Jin, who cut the transmission. They will not show mercy, Grak warned. The Dosu never do. Neither will we, Tyke said. He turned to address the command center. All hands. Battle stations. Lieutenant Jiwoo, coordinate with the mock ships. Engineer Hyun, prepare your drone squadrons. Officer Doyun, I want your boarding teams ready. He looked back at Grak. Supreme Overlord, I suggest you return to your ship. The battle is about to begin, and things might get creative around here. Grak hesitated. You truly believe you can defeat them? I believe we can survive, Tyke answered honestly. And sometimes that's enough to start with. As Grak was escorted to his shuttle, he passed more signs of the humans, strange preparations. Soldiers were laughing as they strapped on modified equipment. Some were taking bets on who would score the most hits. One group was painting bright colors on their helmets to confuse enemy targeting systems, or so they claimed. Back on his ship, Grak addressed his commanders. The humans are strange. They face death with smiles and jokes. They have modified their equipment in ways that make no sense. Should we abandon them and flee? One officer asked. Grak considered this but shook his head. No. We stay and fight. I do not understand their methods, but there is something about these humans, something dangerous when they are bored. Let us see what they can do. On Sentinel-7, Captain Tyke watched on the screen as the Dosu fleet came closer. In 1 hour, the battle would begin. Against all logic, he felt confident. His soldiers had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, even if they hadn't known it. Sir, Jiwoo reported. All systems ready. The crew is at battle stations. Tyke nodded. Then let's show the Dosu what happens when you threaten a station, full of bored human soldiers who've had nothing better to do than figure out new ways to fight. General Vorks of the Dosu Collective sat in his command chair, watching the displays with cold confidence. His fleet of 32 warships had surrounded the human station and the small mock fleet. Victory was simply a matter of following established protocols. Begin standard attack pattern, Vorks ordered. Disable their communications first, then target their weapon systems. His officers moved with perfect efficiency, each performing their assigned tasks without question. The Dosu had conquered 3 sectors using these exact tactics. There was no reason to expect any difficulties from a small outpost and a few desperate mock ships. The first wave of Dosu ships moved forward, weapons charging. Their targeting systems locked onto the human station's communication arrays. But something unexpected happened. Small objects suddenly appeared on the Dosu sensors, moving quickly toward their ships. They were too small to be fighters, too fast. To be missiles, what are those? Vorks demanded. Unknown, General, his sensor officer replied. They appear to be maintenance pods? On board Sentinel-7, Captain Tyke watched the battle screen with a smile. First wave away. How are they doing, Engineer Hyun? Hyun looked up from her control panel, grinning. The maintenance pods are performing perfectly, sir. The Dosu don't know what to make of them. What the Dosu didn't understand was that these maintenance pods had been modified over the past 3 years by board engineers. Originally designed for external repairs, they now carried small but powerful explosives. Most importantly, the engineers had removed their heat signatures by attaching modified cafeteria refrigeration units. The Dosu sensors could barely detect them. They're in position, Hyun reported, detonating in 3, 2, 1. Around 6 Dosu ships, the pods exploded simultaneously. The blasts weren't powerful enough to destroy the warships, but they damaged external sensors and weapon systems. In the command center of the human station, a cheer went up. It worked, Hyun shouted. Direct hits on all targets. On his flagship, General Vorks was furious. How did they get so close? Why didn't our sensors detect them? Unknown, General, his officer responded nervously. They appear to have masked their heat signatures using an unfamiliar technology. Bork slammed his fist on his armrest. Adjust tactics. Move to attack pattern Delta. Target their main weapon systems directly. The Dosu fleet began to regroup. Their damaged ships pulled back while others moved forward to continue the attack. On Sentinel-7, Lieutenant Jiwoo was coordinating the defense using a three-dimensional chessboard that had been repurposed as a tactical display. The crew had spent months setting it up, mostly to fight boredom, but now it was proving useful for tracking complex ship movements. "Captain," Jiwoo reported, "the Dosu are regrouping. They're sending in their second wave. Looks like they're targeting our weapons now." Tyke nodded. "As expected, time for Phase 2. Jin, are you ready?" Communications specialist, Jin gave a thumbs up. "Ready, sir. My hack into their communications network is active. I can't control everything, but I can certainly cause confusion." Jin had spent countless hours trying to intercept alien signals, originally just to find new shows for movie night. That hobby had led her to develop complex algorithms for breaking into encrypted communications. Now she was putting those skills to use. She typed commands rapidly, and suddenly, the Dosu communication channels filled with static and random human music. On the Dosu ships, confusion spread as commanders could no longer communicate clearly with each other. Orders became garbled and coordination between ships broke down. General Vorks growled in frustration. "Clear the channels. How did they penetrate our encryption?" While the Dosu tried to restore their communications, Captain Tyke gave his next order. "Engineer Hyun, launch the drone squadron." Hyun nodded eagerly. "Launching drones now, Captain." From several airlocks around Sentinel-7, dozens of small combat drones flew out in perfect formation. These were the same drones that Hyun had taught to perform synchronized dance routines, but now they carried small explosives and were programmed with unpredictable flight patterns. The drones weaved and spun, making them nearly impossible to target. They flew toward the Dosu ships, their movements resembling a complex dance more than a military attack. The Dosu gunners tried to shoot them down, but the erratic movements confused their targeting systems, which were designed to predict standard attack patterns. "What manner of attack is this?" Vorks demanded as he watched the drones evade his ship's defenses. "They move without logic or pattern." On the mock command ship, Supreme Overlord Grak was equally confused, but increasingly impressed. "These humans fight like no species I have ever seen," he told his officers. "There is no logic to their tactics, yet they are effective." Meanwhile, Security Officer Doyen was leading a bold mission of his own. He and a small team had boarded a shuttle equipped with magnetic grapples, originally designed for an ill-advised race across the station's exterior. "Boarding team ready, Captain," Doyen reported over the comm. "We're approaching the Dosu dreadnought." "Proceed with caution," Tyke replied. "Remember, this isn't a training exercise." Doyen grinned. "But it's going to be fun, sir." His shuttle approached the largest Dosu ship, staying in its blind spots. When they were close enough, they attached to the hull using their magnetic grapples. Doyen and his team, wearing modified maintenance suits, cut their way inside. Back on Sentinel-7, Captain Tyke was monitoring all aspects of the battle. The mock ships, following Jiwoo's surprisingly effective coordination, were holding their own against the Dosu. The human station's weapons, though limited, were causing damage where they could, but the most effective weapons were the improvised ones. Hyun's drones continued to harass the Dosu fleet. Jin's communication hacks kept them confused, and now Doyen's boarding party was inside their largest ship. "Sir," Jiwoo reported, "the Dosu are regrouping again. They appear to be preparing for a concentrated attack on our station." Tyke nodded. "They're learning. Time for our secret weapon." He turned to a group of soldiers waiting nearby. "Launch the Spud launcher." The soldiers cheered and rushed to their positions. The strange cannon that Doyen had built from cafeteria cooking pots was rolled into position near one of the station's airlocks. "What does this weapon do?" Grak asked over the comm from his ship. "Originally, it launched potatoes across our mess hall," Tyke explained. "Now it fires compressed air and station garbage with enough force to disrupt shield harmonics. At least, that's the theory." We've never actually tested it in battle before. Grak made a sound that might have been a groan. You are firing garbage at advanced warships? Yes, Tyke replied simply. But it's very fast garbage. The Spud launcher fired with a thunderous boom. A compressed packet of air, mixed with shredded metal from the station's recycling, shot toward the approaching Dosu ships. When it hit the lead ship's shields, it created a ripple effect that momentarily disrupted their defensive field. Direct hit, shouted the weapons officer. Their shields are fluctuating. All weapons, target that ship, Tyke ordered. The station's conventional weapons, along with the mock ships, concentrated fire on the vulnerable Dosu vessel. Without its shields, it took heavy damage and began to retreat. On his flagship, General Vorks was growing increasingly frustrated. His perfect battle plan was falling apart because the humans refused to fight according to any recognizable military doctrine. What are they doing now? He demanded as new alerts sounded. Sir, his second-in-command reported, we have intruders on the dreadnought, and our fleet communications are still compromised. Half our ships cannot receive orders. Vorks stood up, his 6 eyes narrowed in anger. These humans are not fighting fairly. Their tactics make no sense. Back on Sentinel-7, Captain Tyke received a transmission from Doyen. Sir, we've reached their engineering section, Doyen reported, sounding excited. And you won't believe what I found. Their systems are remarkably similar to that alien video game console Jin rigged up last year. I think I can hack it. Tyke shook his head in amazement. Sometimes boredom led to the most useful skills. Do it, he ordered. And hurry. This battle is far from over. As the conflict continued to rage around them, Tyke turned to Jiwoo. You know, Lieutenant, I think our 3 years of boredom might just save us all. Jiwoo smiled. Yes, sir. It turns out that soldiers with nothing to do but think up crazy ideas are exactly what you need when facing an enemy who only knows how to fight by the book. As the battle entered its second hour, the Dosu fleet began to adjust to the humans' strange tactics. General Vorks had ordered his ships to spread out, making the maintenance pod attacks less effective. He had also assigned teams to constantly clear their communication channels of Jin's interference. The humans are clever, Vorks told his officers. But we are the Dosu collective. We adapt. We overcome. We conquer. On Sentinel-7, Captain Tyke watched the tactical display with growing concern. The initial surprise of their attacks was wearing off. The Dosu were learning. They're changing their formation, Lieutenant Jiwoo reported. Our first wave tactics aren't working anymore. Tyke nodded. As expected. Time to get more creative. Jin, what's your status? Communications specialist. Jin looked up from her station, her eyes bright with excitement despite the danger. I can't keep disrupting their main channels, sir. They've started using backup systems I can't access. She smiled suddenly. But I've found something better. Better? Tyke asked. Their ship's internal communication systems are less protected. I can't control them completely, but I can access their entertainment systems. Tyke raised an eyebrow. Entertainment systems? The Dosu have those? Every species needs entertainment, sir, Jin explained. Even methodical conquerors get bored. And guess what? Their systems are connected to their life support network for some reason. Poor design, really. Can you use that? Jin nodded eagerly. I'm already working on it. Meanwhile, Security Officer Doyen and his boarding team were deep inside the largest Dosu ship. They had encountered resistance but had managed to overcome it using weapons and tactics the Dosu had never seen before. Never thought those corridor paintball tournaments would come in handy in real combat, Doyen said to his team as they moved through the ship. Remember, unpredictable movements, just like we practiced. One of his team members, Sergeant Kwan, was using a modified food warmer as a shield. Another had attached small jets from the recreation room to her boots, allowing her to jump higher than the Dosu expected. Their strange equipment and unpredictable movements confused the enemy soldiers. Doyen reached what appeared to be a main control room. Inside, Dosu technicians worked at various stations. Using hand signals, he directed his team to surround the entrance. Ready? he whispered. Remember the plan. On his signal, they burst into the room. Before the Dosu could react, Sergeant Kwan threw several small objects across the floor. They looked like ordinary station game pieces, but Kwan had modified them to release a harmless but disorienting smoke. As the Dosu coughed and tried to see through the smoke, Doyen and his team secured the room. Control room captured, Doyen reported to Captain Tyke over his comm. You won't believe this, sir, but I was right. Their main systems are similar to that alien gaming console Jin modified last year. Can you access their controls? Tyke asked. Working. On it now, Doyen replied, his fingers moving over the alien console. Good thing I spent 6 months trying to beat Jin's high score. Back on Sentinel-7, Engineer Hyun was facing a problem. Half of her drone squadron had been destroyed by Dosu defenses. Captain, she reported, we're losing too many drones. The Dosu have adjusted their targeting systems. Tyke frowned. This was a setback, but not unexpected. Can you modify the remaining drones' flight patterns? Hyun thought for a moment, then smiled. Yes. Remember that weird dance competition we had last New Year? The one where people had to move in ways no one could predict? The random dance challenge, Tyke recalled. You want to program the drones to move like that? Exactly. Hyun's fingers flew over her control panel. The Dosu targeting systems look for patterns. There were no patterns in that dance competition. It was pure chaos. On the main screen, the remaining drones suddenly changed their movements. Instead of their previous formation, they began to move in bizarre, random patterns. Some spun in circles, others zigzagged unpredictably, and some appeared to just bounce around without any logic. The effect was immediate. The Dosu gunners, who had just adapted to the previous flight patterns, were once again struggling to hit the drones. It's working, Hyun shouted. The drones are getting through. On his flagship, General Vorks was growing increasingly angry. Every time his forces adapted to one strange human tactic, they would switch to something even stranger. What are they doing now? He demanded, watching the drone's erratic movements. Unknown, General, his officer replied. There appears to be no pattern to their movements. Our targeting computers cannot predict their trajectories. Suddenly, all the screens on the bridge flickered. The normal displays were replaced by a looping video of Earth cats playing with yarn. What is this? Vorks roared. Get those images off our screens. We're trying, General, his communications officer said frantically. Someone has hacked into our entertainment systems and locked them on. On Sentinel-7, Jin was laughing as she watched the confusion she had caused. Cat videos, she explained to Captain Tech. I downloaded thousands of them when we first arrived. At the station, never thought they'd be a weapon of war. But there was more to Jin's plan than just annoying the Dosu with cat videos. While their technicians were distracted trying to clear their screens, she was using the connection to the entertainment system to access other parts of their network. I've got partial access to their life support systems, she reported. Nothing critical. I can't turn off their air or anything, but I can mess with their gravity controls. Tyke nodded approvingly. Do it. Throughout the Dosu fleet, artificial gravity began to fluctuate. In some sections, it increased, making movement difficult. In others, it decreased, causing Dosu soldiers to float helplessly. At the same time, Lieutenant Jiwoo came up with a new idea for the station's defenses. She had been in charge of the recreation programs during their long posting, and one of the most popular had been music. Sir, she said to Tyke, what if we use sound as a weapon? Sound? Tyke asked. How? Jiwoo explained quickly. We can modify our external communication arrays to broadcast sound waves at specific frequencies. The Dosu ship's hulls might resonate if we hit the right frequency. It was a crazy idea, born from a music appreciation class Jiwoo had organized to fight boredom. But at this point, Tyke was willing to try anything. Make it happen, he ordered. Minutes later, powerful sound waves began broadcasting from the station, directed at the Dosu ships. The frequency had been calculated based on what they had learned about the Dosu hull materials. It wasn't enough to cause serious damage, but it created vibrations throughout their ships, disrupting sensors and making precision targeting almost impossible. Meanwhile, on the mock command ship, Supreme Overlord Grak was watching the battle with growing amazement. "These humans," he said to his second-in-command, "they fight like nothing I have ever seen. No species would think to use entertainment files and sound waves as weapons." His officer nodded. "The Dosu are struggling to adapt. Their standard tactics are useless against such unpredictable methods." For the first time since the conflict began, Grak allowed himself to feel hope. Perhaps we will survive this after all. On the captured Dosu control room, Doyen had made a breakthrough. "Captain," he reported excitedly, "I've gained access to their weapons control system. I can't shut them down completely, but I can delay their firing mechanisms by about 3 seconds. 3 seconds is an eternity in battle," Take replied. "Do it." The combined effect of all these unconventional tactics was beginning to turn the tide. The Dosu fleet, despite its superior numbers and firepower, was in disarray. Their communications were compromised, their targeting systems confused, their crews distracted by strange videos and fluctuating gravity, and now their weapons were delayed. On Sentinel-7, Captain Tyke allowed himself a small smile as he watched the tactical display. The Dosu ships were pulling back, regrouping yet again. "Sir," Jiwoo reported, "I think we might actually win this." Tyke nodded. "And all because my crew spent 3 years coming up with ways to entertain themselves." He opened a channel to all stations. "Well done, everyone. But stay alert. The battle isn't over yet." On his flagship, General Vork stared at the screens in disbelief as his mighty fleet was being defeated by what appeared to be games, cat videos, and sound waves. "This," he growled, "is not how war is supposed to be fought." General Vorks of the Dosu Collective had never faced such humiliation in his long military career. His mighty fleet was being defeated by tactics that made no sense. His ship's systems were compromised. His crews were confused and disoriented. "Enough!" he shouted on his flagship's bridge. "Pull back all ships, regroup at safe distance. We will attack again with full force." The Dosu fleet began to retreat, moving away from Sentinel-7 and the mock ships. Vorks needed time to think, to develop a new strategy against these unpredictable humans. On Sentinel-7, the command center erupted in cheers as they watched the enemy retreat. "They're pulling back," Lieutenant Jiwoo reported, trying to maintain her professional tone despite her excitement. "All Dosu ships are moving to a position 10,000 kilometers away." Captain Tyke nodded, but didn't join the celebration. "They're regrouping, not surrendering. This isn't over yet." He was right. On his flagship, General Vorks was gathering his top officers. "These humans do not fight according to any known military doctrine," he told them. "Their tactics are chaotic, unpredictable, and somehow effective, but they are still just one small station with limited resources." His second-in-command spoke up. "What are your orders, General?" "We will attack again," Vorks decided. "All ships at once, full power to weapons. Overwhelm them with our superior numbers and firepower. They may have clever tricks, but they cannot stand against our combined might." On Sentinel-7, Captain Taek was holding a similar meeting with his officers. "The Dosu will attack again," he said, "and next time they won't hold back." "We've used most of our surprises," Engineer Hyun reported. "Only 5 drones left. The maintenance pods are gone, and they'll be prepared for our sound wave attacks. Now," Security Officer Doyen's voice came over the comm from the captured Dosu control room. "Captain, I've learned something important. The Dosu have a hierarchical command structure. All tactical decisions come from the flagship. If we could somehow neutralize their command ship, the rest would be thrown into confusion." Tyke looked thoughtful. "Can you target the flagship from your position?" "Negative," Doyen replied. "I'm on one of their dreadnoughts, not the flagship, and they've locked me out of weapons control now." Captain Tyke turned to Jin. "What about you? Any way to access their flagship systems?" Communications specialist Jin shook her head. "They've completely isolated their main systems. The entertainment hack won't work twice." Then her eyes lit up. "But there might be another way." Remember that message system I set up so we could send birthday greetings throughout the station? Tyke smiled. Jin had created an elaborate messaging system that could bypass the station's normal communications channels. It had started as a way to plan surprise parties without the birthday person finding out. Can you adapt it to send a message to all Dosu ships except the flagship? He asked. Jin nodded eagerly. I think so. What do you have in mind? Tyke explained his plan quickly. It was risky and completely unorthodox, just like everything else they had done so far. As the Dosu fleet began moving back toward Sentinel-7, Jin worked frantically at her console. Lieutenant Jiwoo coordinated with the mock ships, getting them into position. Engineer Hyun prepared her last 5 drones for a special mission. They're coming in fast, Jiwoo reported. All ships in attack formation. They're concentrating their firepower this time. Tyke took a deep breath. Jin, are you ready? Ready, Captain. She hit a final key on her console. Message sent. Throughout the Dosu fleet, on every ship except the flagship, screens suddenly displayed what appeared to be orders from General Vorks himself. The message told them to target the flagship with all weapons. Of course, Vorks had given no such order. Jin had created a fake message that looked like it came from Dosu High Command. It was a trick she had perfected during the station's Prank Week celebrations. On the Dosu ships, confusion spread. The orders made no sense, but they appeared to be authentic. Sir, Vorks's communications officer shouted. Multiple ships are targeting us. They're powering up weapons. What? Vorks couldn't believe what he was hearing. Override those commands immediately. Tell them to stand down. But his orders couldn't get through. Jin had flooded the communication channels with static and, strangely, more cat videos. Several Dosu ships fired on their own flagship. Their weapons struck the shields, weakening them significantly. In that moment of confusion, Engineer Hyun launched her final 5 drones. But instead of weapons, these drones carried something else. Special packages prepared by the station's science team. The drones slipped through the damaged shields of the flagship and attached themselves to the hull. Then, they released their packages, a sticky, expandable foam that rapidly spread across the ship's sensor arrays. This foam was originally created by the station's science team for a contest called Create the Most Annoying Substance. It had won first place for being nearly impossible to remove and for jamming electronic equipment. With its main sensors covered in the jamming foam, the Dosu flagship was effectively blind. At the same time, several Dosu ships, still believing they were following orders, continued to fire on their flagship. General Vorks watched in horror as his carefully planned attack fell apart. His flagship was under fire from his own fleet. His sensors were jammed, and the human station was now launching a coordinated attack alongside the mock ships. This is impossible, Vorks shouted. How can one small station cause so much chaos? On Tiduweu, Sentinel-7 Captain Tyke opened a direct channel to Vorks. General Vorks, this is Captain Tyke. Your flagship is damaged. Your fleet is in confusion. You have 2 choices. Retreat or be destroyed. Vorks stared at the screen showing the human captain. This is not how war is fought. Your tactics violate all military conventions. Tyke smiled. No, General. This is how humans fight when we've had 3 years to think up ways to beat an enemy. Now make your choice. Faced with a flagship that could barely function and a fleet that was no longer following his orders, Vorks had no choice. We will withdraw, he said through clenched teeth. But know this, human. The Dosu Collective does not forget. Neither do bored soldiers, Tyke replied. Remember that before you think of coming back. The Dosu fleet pulled back, limping away from the system. Sentinel-7, the celebration began in earnest. Security Officer Doyen and his team returned from their mission, bringing with them valuable Dosu technology. And, strangely, a small, 6-eyed creature Doyen insisted was just like a cat, but with more eyes and better at chess. The mock fleet approached the station. Supreme Overlord Grak requested permission to come aboard, which Captain Tyke granted immediately. In the station's meeting room, Grak bowed deeply to Tyke. Captain, my people owe you a debt we can never repay. The alien leader said. You have saved us from extinction. The Mach will be your allies forever. Tyke smiled. Happy to help, Supreme Overlord. Though I should warn you, now that the excitement's over, my crew will be looking for new ways to entertain themselves. You mean they will return to their modifications and strange projects? Grak asked, sounding worried. Probably worse than before, Lieutenant Jiwoo said as she entered the room. Now they have real battle experience to build on. That is concerning, Grak admitted. As if to prove Jiwoo's point, an explosion sounded from somewhere in the station, followed by an apologetic voice over the comm system. Sorry, Captain. It was Engineer Hyun. Just testing a new idea based on those Dosu shield frequencies. The good news is we can definitely improve our defenses if they ever come back. Tyke shook his head, smiling. And that, Supreme Overlord, is why military commanders throughout human history have always feared one thing above all others. What is that? Grak asked. Soldiers with too much time on their hands, Tyke answered. News of the battle spread quickly through nearby star systems. The story of how one small human outpost had defeated a mighty Dosu fleet using cat videos, dance routines, and sticky foam became a legend. Several alien species immediately reconsidered their plans to expand into human space. The risk, they decided, was simply too great. Who knew what other strange weapons humans might have developed out of boredom? At Outpost Sentinel-7, life slowly returned to its quiet routine. But now, Captain Tyke didn't try to stop his crew's unusual projects and modifications. Instead, he encouraged them, knowing that the creativity born from boredom had saved them all. After all, he told Lieutenant Jiwoo, as they watched a group of soldiers testing what appeared to be a cannon that fired singing birthday cake. You never know when we might need another crazy idea to save the day? Jiwoo nodded. I think that's the real lesson here, sir. Human boredom might be the most powerful force in the galaxy. That, Tyke agreed. And cat videos. The end.